What's going on, guys? It's PJ here. I'm back with another Jaxcast for you, and as I mentioned in the previous podcast, today's topic is going to be Resident Evil. Resident Evil in general. I think I talked a bit more about Resident Evil 7 because that's what I'm playing at the moment, which I am, and I'm about halfway through it, and it is terrifying to say the least. I'm sure most of you have either seen it or played it, and you know what a scary game it is. But yeah, I'm just going to talk about the whole Resident Evil series. As a whole, it's one of my favourite game series of all time. I've played it from when I was really young. So yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about. Before I get into that though, I did just want to talk about one thing real quick, and that was about two videos that I said I was going to put up and I didn't. And I wanted to make clear as to why that was. So I was talking about an Undertale game love that I had been working on since like December. And also the My Top 5 videos. I think it was when I went to EGX. And to be honest, I worked over those constantly because I wanted to get them out. But the more and more I worked on them and did the audio and everything, I didn't feel they were of a good enough quality for me to be happy with them on my channel. So to be fair, that's the main reason as to why I decided not to put them up. I know I said I was going to, but I just thought I'd tell you guys now in case anyone asks for the future. So now that we get all that crap out of the way, Resident Evil. Now, talking about it from the beginning and my beginnings, my first Resident Evil experience was playing Resident Evil 2. That was when my cousin came round. He brought round Resident Evil 2. We played it on the PlayStation, and obviously I was really young. I shouldn't even have been watching or playing any of that, but it sort of sparked my interest in the series. And I didn't actually, from then on, only from playing Resident Evil 2, I didn't play a Resident Evil game until I had my own games console, which was a GameCube. So then I thought about getting the remake for Resident Evil 1, which was absolutely one of my favourite Resident Evil games. I never played the original Resident Evil, mostly because I know how hard it is trying to kill zombies and stuff. I still have to do that one day. I think I'll have to download it from the PlayStation Store or something. But yeah, played through the whole of the remake, and that is such an amazing game. Just the terror and suspense that it puts you in is just throughout the game. But a lot of you guys will know, if you're fans of the series, then obviously there are certain moments that stick in your mind quite a lot. Obviously, for me, there's obviously the dogs crashing through the window. I think I had to play the game with a friend to get through it, because I find horror games really difficult, even ones that aren't sort of scary, but like jump scares and stuff like that. Yeah, them crashing through the windows. What do you have? The hunters crashing through the windows. Oh, there was some really creepy bits. And also the whole Lisa Trevor moments that they brought through in that remake was really cool and really difficult. So yeah, that was the first Resident Evil game I owned, and then obviously I went and bought Resident Evil 2 and played through the whole thing again. I think me and my friend managed to knock it out in about 4 hours one night, so that was fun. And Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which was again kind of like Resident Evil 1, that was really scary. I think Resident Evil 3 was probably worse. I just feel Resident Evil 3, when you're being chased, obviously they've sort of brought that back in a way with when they did it for Resident Evil 6, when you play as Wesker's son and Sherry, and also in Resident Evil 7 when you're being chased by Jack Baker. But Resident Evil 3 for me, like, you would just go outside the save room and he could be there, and then you make your way through a door and you think you're okay for a second, and as soon as the camera angle changes, bam, he's coming to get you. Oh, terrifying. Seriously terrifying. The graphics weren't amazing, but they didn't need to be for how they set like situations like that up. I thought it was brilliant. I just want to talk now a bit about sort of how the game designs have changed throughout the years. Obviously everyone knows, like, you could say there's sort of two sides to the fan base. Some that really, really love the originals in terms of the certain camera angles that you have so that you can see it, and it's all in third person, and it's much less action based. It's more survival horror, and obviously that's what the genre was based on. So up until it was Resident Evil 4, that was when they changed it dramatically. But you could argue that you got a whole new fan base from Resident Evil based on the game mechanics. So you were just behind Leon, and it was a completely sort of different setup after Raccoon City and all that, so it all changed. Now, Resident Evil 4 done absolutely well, and it was a great game for what it was. Personally, I've played it numerous times and I enjoyed playing it, but it never, ever, ever to me felt like a Resident Evil game. Obviously it had Leon in it, and obviously Leon's a great character. I've got to stop saying obviously, or literally, I've got to stop saying those two. I've got to cut them out. But just because it has those characters, like, I didn't get the build up of tension. I didn't have that same fear factor going into a lot of the areas. I think there was only one part of the game where I felt that same sort of fear that I thought that I had in Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and that was the regenerators. And even those moments, and the only reason they scared me was because I shot one of their legs, and I didn't know that they could jump at you from the ground. So once I learned that, yeah, I would never shoot them in the leg again. You think that would slow them down, but no. But yeah, for me, Resident Evil 4 was a letdown. In terms of the game mechanics, you could argue that it was improved, and people were saying about how obviously it modernised the game a bit and made it more friendly for gamers who necessarily didn't play the rest of the Resident Evil series. But it was far more action oriented for me, and just took away too much. It wasn't survival horror at all. There was barely any exploration, at least in, like, the game wasn't so linear in the original games. You had to explore the house. Obviously there was set things you had to go about, and you had to do them, for argument's sake, in a linear way, but you could explore different parts of the house that were available to you at that point in the game. Whereas Resident Evil 4, you were just going in a straight line into the next bit, into the next bit, into the next bit. And yeah, it kind of disappointed me a little. But that, again, I say that's just my opinion. And then, obviously, Resident Evil 4 done well, so they stuck with the game mechanics, Capcom, which is absolutely fair enough. And Resident Evil 5 came out. Now, I love Chris, but Jesus Christ, what were they thinking? I mean, he was the muscles from Brussels. He was absolutely tanked. Which, okay, it's not a bad thing. I mean, the game was pretty much action the whole way through it. I didn't really enjoy Resident Evil 5 too much, mostly because, like I was saying, that my favourite character was Jill, and obviously you don't see Jill until halfway through the whole thing. But there wasn't enough to the story, for one thing, and like I said, it's similar in Resident Evil 4. Not so much to the game mechanics. Like, for a game like that, the game mechanics have to be, you have to be playing behind, and it will naturally be more action orientated. What I had an issue with, and I think most people will say this, I play single player like the majority of the time. What I mean is, like, story driven games, you could play as Chris and Sheva cooperatively, and I think I did once with my fiance, and yeah, that never happened again. She's not really into games. But the AI for Sheva was just awful. I mean, most of the time she would stand in your way, and when you shoot, no, it doesn't go through. Like, I know that's gaming logic completely out the window, that's totally unimmersive, but you're just shooting her, and you're shooting her constantly, and she just gets in the way. And I just remember moments when I was just trying to take someone out with a handgun or a shotgun, and she would just either get in the way or just do something really stupid. I could not rely on a computer AI playing with me. It was horrendous, which made the game so much more difficult to complete, just because you were trying to play it as a one-player game, which all Resident Evil games before that had been. So I think that was the thing that infuriated me more about that than sort of anything else. And obviously the bit at the end, I should have mentioned this before, but yeah, spoilers, you know, for all these games that are how old now, like 10 to 20 years old. Wesker, they made a decision with Chris to kill off Wesker, and for me that was a grave error in judgment. Wesker was the best villain of the game. He'd survived so many games. You know, I'd played Resident Evil Code Veronica X quite late in the series, and seeing him in that was really cool as well. He's just the bona fide villain, and to see him get killed off when they definitely have a long way to go with Resident Evil, I think anyway. So I was more than a little disappointed to see him actually die. I thought there would be like an after credit clip or something of him sort of making his way out or something like that, but no, that was extremely disappointing. And okay, they tried to bring it back in Resident Evil 6. You know, they had do you know what, I can't even remember Jake, that's it. I was like, I forget what his name is, Wesker's son. But you know, Resident Evil 6 was so bad. For anyone that hasn't played it, I will happily tell you not to bother. I played through 2 of the stories, 2.5. I played through Leon and Helena's. Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. I haven't played through all of them, so that potentially goes against what I'm saying. But played as through Leon and Helena's. It just, again, in fairness, their story seemed like the most sort of Resident Evil-y, if you can say that, like more survival horror. But even then, it was action based. There was more shooting than there was sort of anything else, and obviously I missed the camera angles. Now, don't get me wrong, like I love Ada and I love Leon and the whole their sort of on off whatever they've got going on, if anything, storyline. But the whole, from what I gathered, I mean, I haven't played it in a very long time, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole basis around the final boss for Leon and Helena was a guy that was infatuated with Ada, so he decided to make a clone of hers. Now, just let that sink in for a minute. Does that seem like an interesting, or for me acceptable, story to have? Now, I would say no right off the bat. No one gives a crap about some guy's infatuation with Ada. This is to do with zombies and survival and all this other type of crap. I mean, I know it's all global now, you know, they had missions in China and stuff like that, so it's all over the world. It's expanded, it's far bigger than just one mansion, and I get that, but there has to be a lot more substance to a story than that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'll try and Chris's story with Piers Niven, yeah. Chris's all-action Call of Duty storyline with Piers admittedly had quite a cool twist at the end, with Piers turning into God knows what. So that, I liked that, and it showed a bit of Chris's emotional side, which definitely feels lost in Resident Evil 5 and 6. He seems to have lost his emotion. He's just become a super angry geezer. So yeah, I was very disappointed. I was disappointed, to say the least, with how the game series had gone. But now we come on to the latest issue, and FYI, yeah, I'm leaving out stuff like Outbreak and the ones that aren't sort of embedded in the story with the main characters. So I'm just focusing on, yeah. So as it stands, like I said, I'm about halfway through Resident Evil 7. At the time of this recording, I've just faced Marguerite, one of the creepiest and scariest bosses ever. But yeah, they went completely left field with this, and you have to say kudos to Capcom for doing an absolutely fantastic job with Resident Evil 7. Now, I could go on about potentially what a lot of other people go on about, and how obviously it's in first person, which makes a complete difference. So obviously they've gone from the set camera angles, third person, and now it's first person. Obviously, I would argue that the majority of horror games, the scariest horror games, are in first person, because you are in that situation, you are looking around at things, and you are not seeing someone else getting attacked. You are not seeing Jill getting attacked. You're not seeing someone else. That I have cut, and I will admit this as well, I have cut out certain bits where I've actually just stopped the game, taken a huge deep breath, stood up for a minute, and just gone, oh, hit the mic. I just had to stop because I was literally getting so terrified. That sounds so bad, I know, but I am determined to make my way through the game, and I will eventually. But yeah, anyway, getting back to it, going off on a tangent here. Resident Evil 7 puts you in the shoes of a guy named Ethan Winters, but what they've done, and what I've noticed cleverly, what they've done is you haven't seen his face, you don't know anything about your own character, and maybe that's something to do with the story itself. So if you guys know something, don't tell me. I might have said something different on one of my videos, but yeah, no, don't give anything away from me, please. Please. But yeah, you don't know a lot about him, so they're trying to put you in the game as much as possible, and it really works. Like, they've done a brilliant job with it. Not just that, the beginning hour demo, when that dropped, it was ridiculous. The hype that one demo brought up for the actual game, I think far more people were going to get Resident Evil 7 that may not have even played the previous Resident Evil games, because of the build-up that I think that demo had sort of set, obviously with the multiple endings, just sort of the ambience, and potentially the difference that this Resident Evil has from the previous ones. Then you move on to the characters. Now, obviously, like I've said, at the moment, I haven't seen any type of reference as it stands to any other Resident Evil characters or anything like that. You only see in the beginning hour demo a picture of a Resident Evil, an Umbrella helicopter. Other than that, you don't see an awful lot. There's references to stuff that you did in previous games, like getting the broken shotgun, all the doors, and they have weird keys and stuff like that. So all that's part of, like, it takes you back to the original games, which I think was really cool. Especially the broken shotgun bit. I personally love that. But the Baker family, essentially, who they have for this, it just gives me the whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre type family, and you don't really have a lot to go on. Once you get in there, you are just trying to get away from these people, and it is terrifying. You have random encounters with Jack, like near enough right at the start of the game, and that is the worst. It doesn't matter how much you watch of someone else playing it, if you go and play it, he'll do something different. He will do something different. So all I've got to say is that if you haven't played Resident Evil 7 and you love the series, no matter if you're a fan of the third person or the set camera angles from the old games, like I'm still a massive fan of that, and I'd like to see that. What I'd like the most, I think, because Resident Evil 7 has sort of moved the series on. It's reignited the series in a really big way, and I think people are looking forward to the next Resident Evil game after Resident Evil 7 that will probably potentially be in first person again. I would quite like if Capcom made potentially another Silent Hill. I know Silent Hills fell apart and stuff like that, but another game where they have the set camera angles, because I think there's still a huge fan base for a horror game where that is the case. Like, if not, just that's what I would really like to see. Now, I have been talking for 25 minutes, which is a lot longer than I normally would do, and I hope I got all my points across. Did I? I'm going to have a quick look. So I will leave it with one final thought about where the series goes from here. As I just said, I think there will be anticipation for a similar type of game to what Resident Evil 7 was, and I would expect more of the same if VR actually takes off a lot more than I think people expected. I think people expected VR to blow up this year, and it really hasn't. I don't think there's been enough games for it, but I think for now, I think Resident Evil has definitely brought itself back from potentially the brink of sort of losing its identity, and I felt like, especially Resident Evil 5 and 6, it definitely lost what made it great in the first place. Anyway, so yeah, I think Resident Evil 7 has really brought the series back, and I'm so excited to see what they do with the next one. I'm still chomping at the bit to find out what happens with the rest of this game, Resident Evil 7. I'm only halfway through, so stick with the series. I hope you're enjoying my Resident Evil 7 series, because I know I am. Terrified out of my mind. I'm doing it, and we're going to get through it together. So, thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. It was a lot longer than I thought, and I might have to cut out some stuff, but I'll see. I'm hoping to get this out. I'll get this out before the end of June, because this is a monthly podcast, and I should have done this ages ago, but I didn't have the time. Anyway, enough of that crap. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. Hitting that like button will really help me out. I really appreciate it a lot. Thank you guys for listening. As always, I've been Patriot Jax, or PJ for short. And remember, guys, the game has just begun.